We'll get you out here on time. That's the first thing. I'm sure we're all tired. That was amazing, Natalie. And, I just was thinking so deeply about what you were talking about that I completely forgot about that I'm closing out today and really didn't think much about it until the very end. And I started to reflect on something from today, and that was some of the key messages. And one, I think, was you, Pippa, that brought this up. Nothing about us without us, which is not a new phrase that we've heard before, but in the context of clinical trials, we haven't really heard that before. And it was great to finish the day on patient centricity because it made me think about why we wanted to do this whole thing in the first place. And that goes back to the Clinical Trials Transformation Initiative in terms of how do we make it easier for patients to not only help design trials, but also to participate in trials, to have access to trials. We have between a 2% and 7% participation in Canada in cancer clinical trials. It's really bad. It's a little bit better in the US and it's much better in the UK. This is where we started actually 7 years ago. So when we came up with the idea inspired by Citi and not only the Clinical Trials Transformation Initiative engagement of patient groups in the first place and engagement of patients being represented by that patient group, we thought about really if we are going to find a I'd like to say, I just should say, when I was diagnosed with cancer in 1995 with metastatic cancer, they said, don't worry, in 5 years we're going to have a cure with the clinical trials. And that's when Judah Folkman came out with anti-angiogenesis and so forth. So I started to think very heavily about clinical trials and how patients could gain access to these trials to make a difference. And we have this big, big problem. Even when patients actually have patient navigators, like QCRO has started and others have started in a very small manner in Canada to try to find out about the trials through very complicated clinical trial finders, they can't get into the trials or they're too far away. So embedding clinical research into clinical practice is a solution to a problem. It's not a problem looking for a solution. It is actually a solution to the problem. And that is really what goes to the heart of patient centricity. How can we best serve patients? And how can we do it through our clinical trials process in Canada? Because that is the way that we're either going to prolong life or find a cure. And I mentioned those, terrible statistics that we have and predictions for the year 2030 in Canada, where they're even going to get worse. We have to do something about it. A very good point was raised today. So how do we actually bring about change? And Jerry Battis earlier this morning said, we have to do it from the bottom up. And Francois, you said we have to do it from the top down. I'm not sure what the right answer is. Probably both, right? We probably have to work from the ground up and from the top down in order to bring about change. But we're in a situation now where the Canadian healthcare system is really, going through problems, to put it politely. And certainly the research is threatened in Canada from various angles, whether it be at the PMPRB discussions that we've had in the past or otherwise. The resources are not there. So collectively, we do have to work together. All the stakeholders, and I think that was beautifully put, Sarah, with all the different people who were affected in the clinical trials, embedding clinical trials into clinical practice and what they had to gain in that one slide. Those are the people that have to really work on it together in order to bring about change. Tomorrow we'll look at those recommendations that you had from the city. We'll workshop those and talk about how, from a patient perspective and from all of your perspectives, who have different perspectives in the room, industry, clinical trial networks, researchers, and so forth, patients, how can we actually bring about change? So with that, have a great evening. I think we're out just about in time, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow. And thank you, Pippa, for coming in all the way from the UK, and those of you who've traveled from the US. Oh, one last comment. Finally, we have doctors that are coming to Canada instead of the reverse. Thanks, Natalie, for that. Thank you all. Have a good night.